to this group of friends includes my best friend, and I don't know how to not sound like a jerk when I'm talking about this stuff and putting people on the defense, but I still want to share the things that are important.
Well, I do actually have some advice about that. I would say that you've already explained to them your position, and they've explained to you yours, and now it's time to start promoting your thing instead of putting their thing down all the time, because I think that that's how they feel.
I think they do. I think they feel like I'm putting down whatever they say, even though I try to say, their idea is right for certain people, and that my idea is right for other people, and things like that. But it still sounds very much like like they're they just don't want to hear the topic because it's a point of disagreement.
It might be because every day they're busy working for the ideas that you disagree with now, and they just don't feel like you're being productive.
And it also sounds like both parties are very passionate about these topics or projects that they're working on, so that can sometimes kind of heat things up in disagreements.
I would even say that your group of friends doesn't mean to put your project down, but they find themselves doing so a lot just out of a defensive move, because it seems to them that you're always putting theirs down, and honestly, none of us actually disagree with what you're doing, so it kind of puts you in a bad position in all fronts.
Agreed. This seems to be the case. So let me make a final point and then see how you react to that.
Okay.
I feel like they and their passion project are perhaps not wasting their time, but expending inefficient energy in a direction where it could be far more productive in a different direction. And all I want to do is sort of tell them, I just want to share with my friends this really great thing that I've figured out, and all I can do, and all that seems to happen is it's shut up. Not, I disagree with your point here, here, and here. There's not debate. There's, I'm sick of talking about this. Why do you keep attacking us? And there's a foundation in my relationship with my friends that has to do with debate. We debate a lot. And what it feels like to me is that they clearly don't have points to make to show me, I could be wrong. Absolutely, positively could be wrong, but nobody can kind of make points to show me where I'm missing this thing or that thing. And I want to show them what they're missing. And this is all out of generosity, but it's clearly not working. I'm at the point that I understand it is not working.
I think I just disagree with the way you see things, because I saw Penguin today giving you points to explain to you why he doesn't feel that New Hampshire is their project is a waste of effort, and it seems to me that you just don't want to hear it. It seems to me like you already are stuck in your beliefs. You don't want to hear what they believe, and at that point, I would say it is time to realize you can't change their minds, and just work on spending your energy where it's most efficient, which is working on your passion project.
Maybe I could ask a question like, what would it take? What would I have to achieve? What would I have to show you to show that that my idea is effective and good? Is there any way like that, or do I just have to let it go? Actually,
I don't think that that your friends disagree that your project is good. It just needs more time to be proven. It's a good idea, but it does need more time to be proven. But
it's much more like an idea than a solid thing.
I think the only thing that you could do to disprove your friends that what they're spending their time on is inefficient is actually being here and doing what they're doing every day, because from what I've heard, I didn't live here at the time, it seems like you weren't doing the same things as a lot of your friends were when you lived here even. So if you weren't putting in exactly what they were putting in, I just don't know how you can tell them that what they're doing is inefficient are going to make them fail. Sounds to me like you were doing different things, like working on your house. And am I wrong in saying that?
Yeah, I think that that's a perception of one particular person who is very active in certain ways, like, wants to do a lot of things. And it has always been my contention that many of those things are inefficient and have adverse results and don't move in the direction that I want them to, and a variety of things like that. I would point out that if what we're talking about is, was I a sufficient activist in the state of New Hampshire, you would have to first ask, what are the rest of the activists? What are most of the Free Staters like? So I would claim that I'm in the top 10% of activists there. I've taken cases to trial. I have been elected 3 times as a delegate to the state convention. I've testified before the state house. I mean, I lived there for 15 years, so I can have done one thing per year and still sound like I've done a lot. But compared to that person and a small handful of other people, there's no way I can ever achieve, like, in amount of activism, not success, because, I would argue that there isn't a heck of a lot of success. There's a few enumerated things here and there, and, ultimately, life isn't going to be much different, ultimately. Like, for instance, the ability to ride a motorcycle without a helmet with my gay lover while smoking a joint is a useless right to me, because I'm not going to do any of those things. And so having those rights in New Hampshire now, where perhaps you didn't have them before, smoking pot is still arguable, is not particularly successful. Anyway, why don't you guys heard what I had to say. Why don't you talk about it on the air if you want to talk about it some more, or go on and talk about how Biden is going to save us.
Okay, you don't want to stay? You don't want to stay for more?
If you want.
It's up to you. Hang on. 603-283-6160 is the number here. If you've got advice for Mark, he says he needs help communicating with his friends. It's Free Talk Live.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's Antiwar.com.
Brute force, intransigent defiance, adamantine will. These are the hallmarks of the AI tank. These gigantic machines have the firepower of an army, but they also have their own sense of honor and duty. When the world breakers arrive, battle will be joined, planets will shake, and war and peace will never be the same again. World Breakers. Stories from David Weber, Larry Correia, and more. Available August 3rd from BaneBooks.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com. Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless crime spree.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join the show here. The number is 603-283-6160. Maybe you have some advice for Mark. He's on the line with us here. He's concerned that he is failing at persuading his friends or even communicating with them about something that he considers to be a better plan than what they are doing. And in case you haven't determined what he's talking about, he's referring to the Free State Project and the people who are here in New Hampshire, the activists who are here. At least I presume that it's what he's referring to. We'll get back into his call here in just a moment. But speaking of the Free State Project, the Porcupine Freedom Festival is coming up this summer. And last year, by the way, was a record year for movers here to New Hampshire because it's totally a failure here. That's why over 1,000 people moved for the Free State Project last year. I think it was like 1,300 or something like that.
It's the first time it's ever been over 1,000 in history.
Yeah.
I did.
Year.
You were last year. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Me too.
Bonnie was too.
Yeah, look at us.
So there are more people coming here than ever before, and it looks like I spoke with Mark Warden, who's the Porcupine real estate guy. He was at they had a big table, of course, at the convention that Bonnie and I went to over the weekend, the Liberty Forum, and I asked him how things are shaping up because all he does is real estate, and probably 90+% of his customers are free staters. And he says it's looking like it's going to be on par with last year, at least, if not, we're not only just a couple months in at this point, but so it may get better. It may get even bigger than last year, but definitely on track. So you want an excuse to come check out New Hampshire and experience what it's like to be around more freedom-loving people than you can possibly get to know, because that's how it is here. You want to go to one or both of these festivals. The Porcupine Freedom Festival, that's the big one, and it's nearing sellout status. According to Dennis, the organizer of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, they are now at 94% sold out. So almost there. If you are considering getting tickets to the Porcupine Freedom Festival, you ought to do it like this week, it sounds like. They may extend the tickets out a little bit, but that may not happen. So now's your chance to get those. Keep in mind the campsites are sold out already for the campground, Rogers Campground, during the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So you're probably either going to need to ask nicely from other people who have campsites if they're willing to share, or find some hotel that's not sold out in the region. Now, for Fork Fest, which is the week after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, Fork Fest week is June 27th through July 3rd. It's going to be the 6th annual Fork Fest. ForkFest is decentralized, so there's no ticket cost. There's no tickets to buy. All you have to do is get your RV site, your campsite, or your motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. It's definitely a much lower attendance in past years, kind of like the after party for the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So if you want a relaxing week in the woods.
Lower attendance than the Porcupine Freedom Festival, right?
Correct.
Not lower and lower every year.
No,
it's
I don't
getting
think
bigger
so.
every year.
I don't know. I wasn't there last year.
Well, that's
so
what I heard from people who did go.
Yeah, there was a pretty good turnout last year for Porkfest. Yeah.
But it's definitely a little bit of a different flavor, and if you want to spend Independence Day with freedom-loving people here in the Shire, you definitely want to come up to ForkFest. You can go to forkfest.party to learn more about the event. Again, everything's unofficial. There's no organizers of this thing, so if there's something you want to see happen, you should probably do that thing, whether it's bring your own poker table to have a poker game.
Karaoke.
Bring your own speaker, microphone, and laptop or whatever for karaoke, or if you want to, have a band play, then you should be that band, I guess, because you got to be the creator of the thing to happen over at ForkFest. Forkfest.party. We're going to go back to Mark. He's on the line here. He's got some concerns about reaching his friends here in New Hampshire, attempting to communicate something that he thinks is a really important idea, and he feels like he's not as effective at this as he could be. And ladies, you had some advice for him. I don't know if y'all had a chance to fully express your opinions or thoughts, so I wanted to continue if y'all wanted to.
Well, I think I pretty much answered all his questions.
Well, in that case, I'll weigh in here on this, Mark, because I've been very aware of these communications, and I am a supporter of...
And by the way, it has to have been really difficult for you to have not been able to address them personally with me while I sort of called in with Aria and these sorts of things, because you certainly are my target audience on that.
Well, I'm a supporter of what you're doing. I think it's something you find very important, and you've spent the last roughly half a decade, I think, of your life researching special economic zones and looking and traveling to many of these potential locations and meeting with other people of a similar interest, and you truly believe in this, and I really do hope that you can find this great place and or create this great place. I think it's an interesting project. However, I do have my criticisms of it, and I think that you're trying to recruit people primarily, just to come to your concerns that you expressed in the last segment to specifically address those. I think the people you're trying to recruit who you believe are wasting their time are a different target audience than who you're really looking for. I think the people who you're trying to recruit don't have the same goals as you. And so because they don't have the same goals, your persuasion methods are not persuading them. And when I say they have different goals, obviously we're all looking for more freedom, so we all share that particular goal. But I think that maybe the perception is that your goal might be to get away from the United States as far as possible, to be in what you consider to be more free place, and live out the rest of your life in that free place. Is that accurate?
Yeah, that sounds like, don't we all want liberty in our lifetimes? Isn't that the tagline? I kind of feel like I'm certain, in fact, that there won't be liberty in New Hampshire because of a couple of things. A, the Free State Project is never about secession, and all y'all seem to think secession's possible.
Well, yeah, because the Free State Project can't make a political stance because they're a nonprofit. The Free State Project can't do that, but lots of people who are part of the Free State Project filled an entire conference room 3 or 4 days ago that Ian and I went to, and were cheering on secession, and Alu Axelman and this guy from Texas and Carla Garrick talking about it.
You're talking about at the Liberty Forum. I don't want to get lost in the issues here, Mark. I want to focus at the general look at goals here. So you did agree with my summation, and that is that you want to get away from the United States, go to a place where you believe you have relative freedom by comparison, and live out the rest of your life. And you'd agreed with that.
Well, I don't want to do that. I think that that is the best solution for somebody who actually claims liberty. For me, I'm a little better off financially, and I can do some traveling, so I want to travel. But I want to make available to people who with lower means, less money, maybe even sort of working class people, to be able to move to a place with more liberty, rather than being sort of having that feeling like the only option they've got is New Hampshire.
I'm glad to hear that, because that was always one of my critiques of what you were trying to do. It always seemed to me to be something that was only appealing to the wealthy, someone who could afford to pick up their lives and move
that
to
was
some.
a source of great frustration to me, that I couldn't communicate to you that this is in fact a project for working class.
However, I still believe, and if you want to hang on, we can here, but I still believe that the goals are different. I'll explain why. I think that the Free Staters' goals are different from your goals. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I can't speak for all Free Staters, right? There's thousands of them. But we'll continue here. It's Free Talk Live. On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, that's really the reason why I amp, is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House intervention came after Moscow falsely accused the U.S. of maintaining biological weapons labs in Ukraine. At the Pentagon, spokesman John Kirby.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. There's nothing to it. It's classic Russian propaganda.
But now the White House says the Russians are spreading the false claims as a pretext to use chemical weapons themselves in Ukraine, pointing out that the Kremlin has a long and well-documented track record of deploying them.
Earlier, a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital in the embattled city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine as civilian casualties continue to mount. Ukrainian officials say 17 people were wounded in the blast. According to UN monitors, 516 civilians have been killed and 908 injured in the fighting since February 24th. The UN estimates that around 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country. President Biden has signed an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. The White House says the order is in response to the explosive growth in digital assets. FSN's technology correspondent Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
The executive order will coordinate efforts among financial regulators to better understand the risks and opportunities presented by digital assets. That includes consumer protection, national security, and illicit finance. The order directs policymakers to explore developing a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank, a sort of digital dollar that more than 100 other countries, including Russia and China, are exploring for their own currencies. The global market for digital assets is now valued at roughly $1.85 trillion. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
The S&P 500 notched its best day of trading in over a year on Wednesday as oil prices plunged. The war in Ukraine had sent energy prices soaring in recent days. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Brent crude posted its biggest daily drop since April 2020 on Wednesday, bringing the price down to closer to $110 per barrel. This comes a day after energy prices spiked following President Biden's decision to ban Russian oil. The dip in oil prices Wednesday fueled a major rally for the US markets. The Dow Jones closed up 2%, the S&P climbed 2.6%, its best day since June 2020, and the Nasdaq climbed 3.6%. William Denzelo, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open here. The number is 603-283-6160. If you've got a comment for Mark, he's on the line. Actually, we do have a caller who wants to speak to Mark. Mark is on the line here, co-host on Free Talk Live. He is concerned with his frustrations that he's been having trying to communicate what he considers to be a better solution than the Free State Project. And, of course, the Free State Project is the #1 liberty community on the planet. It is what has attracted thousands of freedom-minded people to the same place, which is here in New Hampshire. Now, of course, not everybody joins the Free State Project. Not all libertarian types who've migrated here have signed on the dotted line. Aria, for instance, is not a Free State Project participant, but she moved here as part of this whole freedom migration. So the Free State Project is only really part of the New Hampshire freedom migration, which is actually much larger than the Free State Project. But the Free State Project is kind of what got this thing started as a true activist project.
And I signed it, but then I just realized, like the last segment, I never alerted them that I moved.
That you moved.
So I wonder if they counted me or...
There's a lot of people that are like that too, where they'll sign up and then they'll forget, right? Like you don't think about that when you
I thought about
somewhere.
it 10 minutes ago.
I didn't sign up and I never alerted anybody that I moved. I just...
so you're not a Free Stater.
I don't technically consider myself a Free Stater because I grew up 30 minutes from the border. Like, I'm from here. So it just doesn't feel like I did move from Massachusetts to New Hampshire for the liberty community and, largely for the Free State Project. But
well, then I guess they're now changing the definition of Free Stater to just be any libertarian in New Hampshire.
Perfect. That's me.
Which is fine. So we're going to bring Mark back on the line here, but I do want to say thank you to Bitcoin.com, and they are a longtime sponsor here on Free Talk Live. So if you're interested in learning about cryptocurrency like Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, you need to get over to Bitcoin.com. Click Get Started right there at the top of the page. It is something that you should take the time to learn a bit about prior to actually jumping in. Although right now the price of Bitcoin jumped up a little bit in the last 24 hours. I think it's over 42,000 today per Bitcoin.
Oh, wow.
I'll do a quick check on that.
Yeah,
here.
I honestly haven't
under.
checked today.
Just under 41,800 as we speak. So head on over to Bitcoin.com, learn the basics, learn what decentralization is, why it's important when it comes to money, and what is blockchain, some of the basics about this amazing technology that is really part of the evolution of this concept. So get on over to Bitcoin.com, click Get Started, and learn more. And also, if you're not brand new to crypto and you want to get the latest news headlines, they've got them there every single day over at news.bitcoin.com. We're back with Mark on the line here. And what I was saying, Mark, is that when you're talking with someone who might have different goals than you, then it's going to be hard for them to appreciate where you're coming from, because they may interpret what you're saying as irrelevant to them because they don't feel like you have the same goals. And what I mean by that is you're referring to a project of encouraging people to move into perhaps a special economic zone or a place on the planet that you believe is more free. And you may have some evidence that it's more free than the United States. I don't know if that place has been announced yet, but it's something you've been looking for. And
I'm happy to talk about it. I've acquired the location. I represent an organization that has acquired the location, so I'm happy to talk about it. It's called Coral Beach on the island of Utila in the Bay Islands. But I honestly don't believe that Coral Beach is right for everybody. I, in fact, believe that people should people actually need to step down and not take advice from leaders, but instead look at their own lives and say, okay, what's best for me? Because I firmly believe that New Hampshire is right for some types of people. And I've enumerated those types of people at least once on the air. And that, maybe Florida's right for a lot of people. Maybe Texas is right for some people.
See, that's the thing.
Well, when he gave the people that he thinks New Hampshire is right for, it wouldn't include Ian, me, or Aria.
Not true.
Yeah, because I'm from Texas.
Well, now you're going to have to go through who you think it's right for.
Okay. So the first group of people I said, there's 3 groups. So one can be part of any of these groups, all of these groups, or none of these groups. I don't think you can actually be part of group number 2. Group number 1 is anybody who's in the state of New York or in New England who, is just sort of a libertarian, should look at the Free State Project because that is the most libertarian place in the vicinity of where you live. If you can, transfer your job or work from a different location or a variety of things, I think it's right for you. Point number 2 is people who really want to, they want to be in action. They're fighters by nature, and I have made this point that it makes them look bad, but it's just a personality type. They're angry and they want to fight the man. And New Hampshire's a great place to do that. You will get all of that you want to get.
Well, I got to disagree with you on that. I don't think violence is not the solution. I don't know if that's what you were saying there, but I don't think we should be fighting anybody. What we should be doing is gathering as many freedom lovers together and then just, doing whatever it takes to be free in a peaceful way.
Fine. Let me use synonyms for the term fighting. Arguing, cajoling, begging, scolding, a whole variety of things against politicians and bureaucrats in order to attempt in a variety of different ways to get what you want. And then the third group, and this is the group that I'm most careful around, these are the dangerous ones, is the libertarians that just want to get elected, those that want to rule. I'm not saying everybody, and in fact, I don't even think most of the people who have moved and gotten elected fit into this category. I think that they are in the second category. They're the fighters. But this third category, the rulers, these are the ones you got to watch out for. There's been a few of them. They get there, they get the power by saying, hey, we're libertarians and stuff, and then they start voting against the very principles that they had stood for because
that's a concern. I mean, we've seen that happening where people get into office, and it's true, power does corrupt, and it's absolutely true that not even libertarians are immune to that statement. So, I mean, there's definitely some decisions that many of the liberty reps have made that I would not think that I would make if I were in their position. Like, for instance, one of the more recent questionable ones was supporting a marijuana legalization bill that if it passes the Senate, and it sounds like it might not, thankfully, but if it were to pass the Senate and get signed by the governor, that would then create a marijuana bureaucracy within the Liquor Commission and create state-run marijuana distribution stores, which is a terrible idea.
They're just extremely misled, and they think that it's a step in the right direction, but it's absolutely wrong. And I tried to go around Liberty Forum telling as many state reps as I could why I think it's incredibly wrong, and they were like, "Oh well, I don't think it's going to pass." And I was like, okay, well, don't vote for it.
Well, the state reps already voted for it. That was the problem. And that's why I was criticizing their decision, because many of the so-called liberty reps did put their names behind that. What were you going to say there, Nikki?
I was going to say that what happens is people get their eyes set on one thing, and then as far as bills go, they just lose sight of everything else. So they kind of sell themselves out on other things within the bill, and they just lose sight of the big picture. And I think that's what happened. That is more than likely what happened with that particular bill.
It's crazy because there were so many good marijuana bills. Sorry, we are totally changing the subject.
Well, I mean, I definitely understand Mark's criticism here, and I think that's just something that you're going to deal with anywhere. Anywhere where there's a libertarian significance, where there are actually a lot of libertarians, which is here in New Hampshire, and there's nowhere else like it anywhere else, because libertarians fail everywhere. Except for New Hampshire, you're going to have those power seekers. You're going to have the power corrupting people. So, I mean, that's just part and parcel of a growing, successful libertarian movement. The other part I'm going to disagree with here is your number one point, saying that only people from New England should move to New Hampshire. It's a ridiculous statement. There are people who have moved here from as far away as California, some from as far away as Russia.
Well,
and
I
other
think
places.
that what he would say is that they're the fighter type.
I don't know if that's true at all. I think there's a lot of families and stuff that have moved here from California. We had that little kid, that 10-year-old boy that's been calling the show on Friday nights, and his family moved from California, and they love it here. Apparently, more coming up here. If Mark wants to, he can hang on because somebody wants to talk to him. Coming up. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live coming up. We'll get into independence for New Hampshire, the movement that is going to have its bill heard, the very first ever, by the way, that we're aware of in generations. Actual conversation by state representatives in the full state house hearing is expected to happen sometime tomorrow. We're going to tell you more about that on the way here. We've got Mark Edge, one of our co-hosts, on Free Talk Live, calling in about his difficulties communicating with other liberty activists who are here in New Hampshire about his idea of migrating people to something he just revealed tonight. I don't know if you'd mentioned this before, Mark, but you mentioned the island called Utila. It is off the coast of Honduras. We haven't really gotten into any detail about that, but we do have a couple callers now that have some comments or some thoughts for you. So I'm going to go to these calls here. We do have Dave Ridley, one of the earliest movers for the Free State Project in New Hampshire, and still a very active activist. Dave from RidleyReport.com, you're on with Mark.
Yeah, there's this say, hi, Mark. I haven't seen you in so long. But there's this idea that, when you have new data, you come up with a new opinion about something. So we have new data with relation to the Utila project. First of all, now it's a real place. It's not just free private cities concept, at least there's a real place, right? That's a good step forward for Mark. At least he's doing something, right? We might not all agree with it, but at least he's doing something instead of just talking about it. But the third thing, and this is really important now, unfortunately, is that now we have the nuclear bogeyman going loose, it looks like, with a relatively high risk of nuclear war over the next few months. And, even if the current crisis doesn't result in that, we still have the Taiwan crisis coming up. So, or at least it appears we do. So it's pretty obvious that Utila would be probably a safer place than New Hampshire the current paradigm. So that's another point in favor of Mark. So, who knows?
All right. Are you planning on moving down there, Dave?
Oh, no, I would not. I would not move to Utila, no.
Oh, but why not?
Dave, what if you were given a job chronicling the early history of Coral Beach through videography?
I guess I might consider it, but I don't have a passport. I don't even know if I'd be allowed to have one.
Yeah, it's possible. I don't know.
Dave, anything else you want to share? I know you were calling for a different reason tonight, but you heard Mark on the line. You had some thoughts.
Yeah, those are my thoughts on Utila. I don't think I have any others on Utila, but I can talk about the Ukraine thing.
Yeah, Ukraine. Go ahead real quick. We'll keep Mark on the line.
I do have a project I'm trying to push further forward. I did this during the Bosnian War, and I was happy with the results. But basically, the idea is there's a lot of places at least some places that throw away their expiring medicine or surplus medicine, and the idea is to capture that medicine and get it sent to Poland. I have locations I can send it in Poland, depending on what it is, that I'm pretty confident about now. The problem is getting the medicine. It's not as easy as it was during the Bosnian War. So if anyone thinks they have the ability to access surplus or expiring medicine, that sort of thing, I would just ask that they contact me. You can do it directly, Dave Ridley at Facebook, or you can just go to the Free State Project and they can contact me. freestateproject.org can reach me.
You don't want to give out a direct method?
No, I won't give out my email over the air. But again, if you go to freestateproject.org, they have a public address and they all know me. So just contact them.
Okay.
Or use Facebook, just Dave Ridley on Facebook.
All right, Dave, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Let's go to Bad Slave. Also has comments for Mark. Also calling from New Hampshire. Go ahead, Bad Slave.
Hi there, Mark. Good to talk to you again. You know who I am, right?
I do.
Yeah. Good. I have a question for you.
Great.
Have you pursued within New Hampshire the actual creation of an economic zone like you're talking about?
Yes, it's absolutely impossible. There are no special economic zones inside the United States as a nation. They're not possible, and they wouldn't be possible within New Hampshire. And this is one of the reasons that I'm really strong on this. Another thing is New Hampshire's in New England, and New England is one of the least churched places in the world and in the United States. And they don't respect religious freedom. And central to my project is libertarianism as a moral philosophy being a religion. And you're not going to get, that has no legs in New Hampshire. Anybody can look up the Church of the Sword case with the inside of the New Hampshire Supreme Court and see how they ruled.
Well, I have to say that I don't believe you that it's impossible. I think that if the State House, passes a New Hampshire amendment to the Constitution, that you can pretty much within the state of New Hampshire do anything. The limited.
Okay. Can I address it a little further?
What?
A little more clarity. So a special economic zone can be anything, right? So we have opportunity zones throughout the United States where you can divert capital gains by investing in crappy neighborhoods. So that could be called a special economic zone, but it's generally not accepted at the acceptable level. There are currently in the world more than 6,000 special economic zones. They probably should just rename them economic zones because they're not special if there's 6,000 of them. And what has been proposed in Honduras, the ZA, is what I refer to as a special autonomous zone. And it seems to me unlikely that the first special economic zone in America, that probably wouldn't even be allowed by the federal government, would somehow rise to the level of ZAs, where one can have one's own civil law, one's own police department, one's own, just in these zones, you've got your own court system, a whole variety of things that make them highly autonomous compared to special zones elsewhere.
Well, Mark, you have to realize that the states are sovereign, and that they are republics, and that their constitutions guide the bulk of the law within that jurisdiction.
I don't know if this is a good argument against what Mark is, or for Mark to come up here and do this. I just don't see how what you're saying, Bad Slave, it would make it easy for a ZA to appear in New Hampshire. I mean, we saw how the committee shut down the CACR 32 conversation right away by saying, oh, the New Hampshire is sovereign, but not in the way you think of it. And then they just said, yeah, we're not going to let the people vote on this. So I think that Mark has a point that it's easier to create a ZA in utila than New Hampshire. So is that your only point for him? What about what do you have to say to him regarding?
Number one, if you get something going in utila, you're still subject to the jurisdiction that Honduras is offering, and they might change their mind at any moment. The other thing is that's a really great point, and I need to address that now that you brought it up. They'll roll in tanks argument. Now, this was used on the Free State Project many years ago, and we laughed it off. But in fact, on March the 6th, roll in tanks. They did. They actually did. They rolled a tank directly into the Free Talk Live studio. That's how that did happen. In Honduras, this could happen, right? Like they could take amphibious craft and land on an island and a 4,000 English-speaking people that have an autonomous treaty with them and step in. However, I would think that the fact that they're brought in, that ZAs are included in international law in a treaty with Kuwait, where they would have to, this should be settled in The Hague, and it would be likely that that Honduras would be sort of excommunicated from the world stage like North Korea is if it didn't pay the hundreds of billions of dollars that would be brought against them in damages. So I feel like the they'll roll in tanks argument has not a lot of legs.
Thanks, Mark, for the call tonight. Thank you, Bad Slave. Appreciate the discussion. We're going to continue Free Talk Live. Good night, everyone. And he was saying good night there. I was putting him on hold. More coming up. Hour number 2 is on the way. You can join the show, 603-283-6160. Your thoughts are welcome. Free Talk Live. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House intervention came after Moscow falsely accused the U.S. of maintaining biological weapons labs in Ukraine. At the Pentagon, spokesman John Kirby.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. There's nothing to it. It's classic Russian propaganda.
But now the White House says the Russians are spreading the false claims as a pretext to use chemical weapons themselves in Ukraine, pointing out that the Kremlin has a long and well-documented track record of deploying them.
Earlier, a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital in the embattled city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine as civilian casualties continue to mount. Ukrainian officials say 17 people were wounded in the blast. According to UN monitors, 516 civilians have been killed and 908 injured in the fighting since February 24th. The UN estimates that around 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country. President Biden has signed an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. The White House says the order is in response to the explosive growth in digital assets. FSN's technology correspondent Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
The executive order will coordinate efforts among financial regulators to better understand the risks and opportunities presented by digital assets. That includes consumer protection, national security, and illicit finance. The order directs policymakers to explore developing a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank, a sort of digital dollar that more than 100 other countries, including Russia and China, are exploring for their own currencies. The global market for digital assets is now valued at roughly $1.85 trillion. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
The S&P 500 notched its best day of trading in over a year on Wednesday as oil prices plunged. The war in Ukraine had sent energy prices soaring in recent days. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Brent crude posted its biggest daily drop since April 2020 on Wednesday, bringing the price down to closer to $110 per barrel. This comes a day after energy prices spiked following President Biden's decision to ban Russian oil. The dip in oil prices Wednesday fueled a major rally for the US markets. The Dow Jones closed up 2%, The S&P climbed 2.6%, its best day since June 2020, and the Nasdaq climbed 3.6%. William Denslow, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The government of Poland said on Tuesday that it's ready to send a stockpile of old Russian MiG fighter jets to Ukraine on the basis that the United States would then replace them. The State Department said they were surprised by Poland's offer, but the Biden administration is worried now that the shipment of MiGs to Ukraine might be seen by President Vladimir Putin as a sign that NATO is entering the conflict with Russia. Former British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt thinks it's a tough decision to weigh up.
I don't see why we can't do that, but it's a matter for the Poles. There are implications for them if they do that, and ultimately they must decide that. But in all these things, what we're trying to do is to calculate how a very dangerous and slightly unhinged adversary might react. And so I think we have to be cautious and pragmatic. But I think the truth is that this has been both a disastrous period in diplomacy for the West, because we didn't stop this invasion happening, but actually in the last 2 weeks, a very impressive rebound, because I think that people have seen, the world has seen the West unite. And so I think that gives us courage that actually we can end up with the right result.
That, of course, assumes Russia does not topple the government of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, which remains very much Moscow's ambition. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. President Biden signs an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. And the S&P 500 notches its best day of trading in over a year as oil prices plunge. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
Fans of the Tour de France will be disappointed to hear that the race has been put on hold for an indefinite amount of time, as many of the world's top cyclists are currently riding over to the creek to check out cool bugs. Our Chad Williams is live in Bergerac, France.
Thanks, Rachel. Roads that should be full of bikers are empty this afternoon. Right now, the riders were supposed to be here making the climb up the legendary Mont Ventoux, but instead, they rode into the woods after German cyclist Andre Greipel heard that there were a bunch of stick bugs down at the creek, and then everybody wanted to go down there and throw rocks at them. That's when Dmitry Muravyev reportedly skinned his knee but didn't care, and Irish champion Nicholas Roach announced he saw this big weird frog with like an extra arm or something, but it was hard to tell because it hopped away too fast. Race officials have not put a time frame on when the event will pick up again.
People keep saying that this is going to delay the race, but if I know these boys like I think I do, they're going to find some awesome shortcut through someone's backyard.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here if you want to join the show. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Ian, Bonnie, and Nikki here with you tonight. We started the show in a way I was not expecting to. Mark Edge called in. He's a co-host here on Free Talk Live, who has been out of the studio for a while due to various different bail restrictions, and also due to the fact that he does like to travel around, as he was mentioning, and has been investigating these special economic zones for the last several years, and has finally apparently settled on one, or maybe it'll be a special economic zone. I don't think it is yet. Not sure exactly what the plan is there, but it involves something called Coral Beach Village on an island called Utila outside of Honduras. And there is a special economic zone on the island next door, which is called Roatan, and that, I think, was part of what had brought Mark to that area of the world to learn about. So there are special economic zones in the area. They are something that can be created there. And I got to say, it's an interesting project. I've always been supportive of Mark in this project. I want him to find this place, and I want it to work out. I think it'd be great if New Hampshire had some competition. And if he thinks it is going to be possible for people who are of lesser means than Mark, because he's fairly well off, having done very well with the Bitcoin, thanks to Roger Ver and Bitcoin.com and their sponsorship over years, to me it always seemed like a rich man's project. And like, you know, if the average person can't duplicate it, if you can't be anybody and participate, to me that's a real mark against it. So if he's trying to make it so average folks can participate, I think that's an important thing to do. That said, not everyone wants to move to an island. Not everyone's career is going to be in like one of the objections to New Hampshire sometimes is they don't have my career. And there's 1.4 million people living in New Hampshire, so you figure, oh well, we got it all? No, not necessarily. There are still some careers that you might have to like work in Boston or something like that, or maybe there's not even in North New England at all. I mean, that's a pretty rare objection, but I have heard it from people that, well, my career doesn't transfer up there. There's nothing that I can do. And so if that's a problem with New Hampshire at 1.4 million population, it's going to be a problem way more with an island with several thousand people maybe living on it. That's going to be a big issue. So unless your job is completely portable, you know, there's not going to be a whole lot of waitressing jobs on an island with 3,000 people, because everybody that's probably, if there's like restaurants there, and I don't know how many there are, they probably already have all the waitresses they need, and they're probably all Hondurans who will work for way less than an American waitress is
I'm going to be honest, I'm not sure if this is truly, and I don't know.
If what's true?
I was going to say, I'm not sure if this is truly a project for like the average person.
I'm not either. I'm skeptical of his claims.
Average people, I'm speculating that the majority of Americans are working paycheck to paycheck, especially at this point with inflation.
It's more than a majority, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think the majority of people can afford to buy a plane ticket to get down there, never mind like find work. And so I think you would have to be well off to be able to do this, but that's just my speculation. Maybe Mark's correct, and like the average middle class person would be able to do this. So I guess we'll see.
We will see.
My discrepancy with Mark is not even really a logistical one, even though I think the logistical ones are so obvious. Like, I don't understand why he thinks that it's easier to move to an island with 4,000 people than a state on possibly the same continent you live on. The average person who we're kind of targeting lives on in the United States, I'd say. But I think it's a moral objection. I don't want to move to a special area of Honduras knowing how the Honduran government is extremely corrupt and just be like, oh yeah, I don't care about what they do to the people who live in Honduras. I'm a privileged white American, and I'm just going to pay them off to leave me alone, and that's just how I'm going to live my life until I die. I find it really sad because Mark, Ian, and I are I don't know what you call us, the ministers in the Shire Free Church.
We're some of them.
And I just think it's really sad that, Mark is a great minister. He's ministered to me about my anger issues. But I just don't understand how he doesn't see an issue.
Can you believe she has anger issues? This is the first I've heard of it.
I've seen it.
Wow. She seems really calm to me most of the time.
The government doesn't think so. The federal government made me take
She's nice to us.
Anger management classes.
You did lash out at some of the state reps. I have seen you do that, I guess. But yeah. I get where you're coming from on that, Bonnie, and that has always been my objection to the move somewhere where you can pay the cops off advocates. And there are those people, right? There's the people who say, hey, you don't even have to be that wealthy to move to Mexico. You can live like a king for what people pay for a one-room apartment in Keene, New Hampshire. You can live very, very well. So if you've got a job that is portable, you can simply move to one of these places and have a much easier life and have a what some people argue is a much freer life. And my objection always comes down to, but what about the other people in Mexico?
Yeah.
What about the average people in Mexico who cannot just pay off the cops, who are being abused by those police? Because we know police abuse people in the United States. They sure as hell do it everywhere else, because cops aren't any different anywhere else. They're all just a bunch of power-mongering people. I mean, maybe not all of them. There are some that probably aren't in it for the power, but there's plenty that are, and they are
majority.
they're going to wield it on those people. And I remember hearing there was a taxi driver that Mark and I had, because we went down to Anarchapulco a few years in a row until we didn't anymore. But we had the same taxi driver, so we created a relationship with him, and he told us some stuff. And I remember he was telling me about a woman just being harassed by the police outside of a club at whatever time of day it was. She was drunk, coming out of the club, and they were threatening her, and if she didn't, do X, Y, or Z, then they were going to arrest her, and so on and so forth. And I don't remember all the details, but that was kind of the gist of it. And I found myself thinking, if I were seeing that happen, like if I'm in Keene and something like that's happening, I pull out my video camera and I engage in whatever level.
Yeah, it might not be a good idea in Mexico, though.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can do things here because, first of all, I speak the language. That helps.
Yeah.
Secondly, I was born here, and so they can't just eject me. Like, I'm not a guest in their country, right? They can't just eject me from the country because they don't like me, or put me in, a prison cell easily, because I know my rights, and I know what my rights are, and I know how to stand on them. And yes, I've been arrested for recording government workers before, and I won that case. The ACLU of Massachusetts took my case, and I got a $15,000 or I think it was $5,000, whatever, thousands of dollars in a payout in that particular case. So I'm willing to do those things here, but if the same thing happened in Mexico and I was living this lifestyle of the gringo who just pays the cops off to leave him alone,
it's kind of gross.
Then that just, to me, means I am completely ineffective at actually helping other people who are in need of assistance. You cannot change that system. That system is not going to be something that, again, the gringo can get into and try to convince the politicians there to do things differently. You certainly can't run for office or do any of the things, the myriad of things that the Free Staters here are doing. So to me, it feels like just giving up that whole thing. And that's why I was saying to him, I don't think we have the same goals, because it feels like giving up to move to an island or to Mexico or whatever. Sorry, Bonnie, go ahead.
Like I was going to say, just because the Free State Project used to have a tagline or whatever that was liberty in our lifetime, it's never been my goal. It sounds like a great idea. It sounds great, but I'm into liberty more for the ascension of mankind than just for my own personal gain.
Yeah.
I also do think that New Hampshire is one of the freest places on earth. And I think
hands down,
freedom means different things to everyone. Like you said, like we all have different goals. But to me, freedom first starts from within. So I guess it doesn't matter where you are. But for me, freedom would be able to be completely independent, be able to live off the grid, be able to self-source like water, electricity, my food. And I feel like you can do that in New Hampshire very easily, not to mention the massive liberty community that can help you with that.
Right, and the idea that Mark wants to just tell people, if you're not from New England, don't move to New Hampshire. No, come visit, see if it's right for you, plug into the community here, and I guarantee you're going to find an experience that is unlike anything. It cannot be duplicated anywhere else on the planet because we've got the numbers. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can bring up anything you want here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about competing liberty migrations. The idea of moving to an island, a low-population island, which has been something that Mark Edge, one of our co-hosts, has been pursuing for some time. And then the idea of moving to the largest libertarian migration on the planet, a success by all measures. The Free State Project, the New Hampshire Freedom Migration. Mark was talking it down earlier, and I didn't want to get into a debate with him on the air. But the fact is, thousands of liberty-minded people coming to the same place means there will be some serious success stories. And the fact that we have CACR 32, the New Hampshire Exit Amendment, the constitutional amendment that has been put forth and has had a public hearing that the three of us all attended. We witnessed it. It was 3 hours long of nonstop testimony in favor of independence. There was only one guy who was just an average person there who spoke against it. Everyone else was in favor of independence.
And then afterwards he was saying, oh, I think I'm seeing where you guys are coming from.
Was he really?
Well, that's what I heard. I wasn't there for it.
That.
I had to leave early.
Well, so that's one example of the fact that Free Staters have been elected here. Libertarians elsewhere cannot claim any significant amount or even an insignificant amount of state legislators in any other state. I believe there's like one libertarian legislator somewhere in Nebraska or something like that. And they only
Wyoming?
Maybe it's Wyoming. They only won because the Democrats and the Republicans, it was like one or the other didn't run, and so it was only a two-way race.
Yeah, it was him versus a Democrat
yeah,
in
a Republican
Wyoming.
district.
Yeah.
So that's how that person won that office. Here, the Libertarians, a lot of them run as Republicans. Some have run as Democrats and won that way as well. But we run a lot of them in the main parties. The Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, though, is actually very principled, very strong. They've been getting a lot of national attention from other libertarians. But the fact is there are over 40 right now in the state house. Of 400 state reps, 10% of them, a little more than 10%, are free staters, people who have migrated here as part of the Free State Project. That's my understanding. That's the numbers that have been touted. More of them, more than 40, like somewhere upwards of 80 to 100, are mostly libertarian as far as they vote pro-freedom more often than they don't, and they rank at either like an A or a B rank by the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, which is an excellent organization that, Bonnie, you're involved with now, doing some bill reviews that you just got started with that. But they review all the bills every single year, or as many of them as they can. There's like 800, and they only have so many volunteers. So if you're looking for something that you can help people with, even if you're not in New Hampshire and you want to still help the activism movement here, get over to nhliberty.org, and you can get signed up there, and you can become a bill reviewer, and then you can help a lot this political process. Does that happen anywhere else? Does that happen in any other states? Are there actual libertarians reading as many bills as possible?
I doubt it.
Hundreds of bills, making recommendations for all of the state reps, then printing out the voting recommendations on a sheet of gold paper. They call it the gold standard, and standing in front of, as we are going to tomorrow, Bonnie, we're going to be handing out flyers at the State House for NHexit. But the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance is there every single time they have a State House full house session. They're standing there with these flyers, and they're handing out to the reps. Doesn't matter if they're Democrats or Republicans. All 400 reps and the senators, there's 24 of them, they all get one of these sheets. That way they know what the pro-liberty voting method would be on each bill. These are just some of the things that go on here in New Hampshire that are just tremendous levels of political activism. We haven't talked about civil disobedience or anything else that goes on. Just from a political perspective, there's no more successful place than New Hampshire on the planet. So it doesn't matter whether you're in California, New York State, Florida, Oklahoma, or wherever you are. If you want to be where there are more libertarians than anywhere else per capita, and even probably raw numbers at this point, New Hampshire is that place. And it doesn't matter if you want to be, as Mark said, you got to be a total activist. No. Some people just move here and they settle in and they raise their family and they go and they vote.
A lot of people do that.
And they don't do much else, at least not that I'm aware of. And that's okay. You know what? They're having a better life because New Hampshire has been rated as the #1 place to raise a family. Why is that? Well, number one, it's one of the most safest places. It's probably the safest. New Hampshire and Vermont kind of compete for the safest place as far as violent crime is concerned.
And not being having to be brainwashed by the state is a huge one that hasn't even been factored in yet.
When you say that, what do you mean?
What are they called?
Government schools?
The thing that New Hampshire came out with, so you don't have to go to public school.
Oh, yeah, the education savings accounts. That's really new, too. That just started.
That's what I'm saying. It didn't even get factored in yet.
And you know what? Even I've heard some good things. I usually talk a lot of smack about public schools.
Mm-hmm.
I've recently heard some good things about a particular public school up in the North Country.
Oh, like them having kids read good books, that kind of thing? Yeah, I've heard about that.
They were doing some sort of shooting event, having teenagers learning how to shoot guns. Yeah.
The North Country is a special place from what I understand.
So I was very pleasantly surprised when I heard that. So even the public schools aren't really that bad here.
Still, though, definitely would want to stay away from public schools. It's easier to homeschool here in New Hampshire. It's relatively easy. But, I mean, we could spend hours just talking about the success stories, and the fact is numbers matter. The more freedom-loving people we get here, whether they be super activists like Dave Ridley or whether they be barely activists, families that are just trying to raise their kids and go to school and whatever, the more people that we have in this community, the stronger it is, and the more frustrated these statists are going to be. I mean, almost every day, the Free State Project account on Twitter is posting examples of statists flipping out about the fact that the Free State Project exists and has been so successful. They are losing their minds on a regular basis, and they're having these seminars about us, and, whoa, we got to do something to stop them.
Emergency meetings.
Yeah, they seriously are freaking out, and they've been doing this for years. It seems like it's accelerating now. They're getting really worried because the election is coming up, and they know, the Democrats, the studies have shown that they are burning their bridges with constituents over the COVID mandates, and yet the Dems in New Hampshire are still freaking out about, oh my God, we have to put up barriers in the state house or else we can't come back to the state house to do our, business or whatever they're going to do tomorrow. So tomorrow is the first day that since the beginning of COVID, the first day that the full 400, and I doubt it's going to be all 400, but the 400 state reps are supposed to come back to the actual state house to have their full hearing.
I said never mind.
And so they've been meeting in these like stadiums and big convention halls where they've been socially distanced up until now. And so the Democrats said they had to have plexiglass installed between the Republicans and
Wait, did
the
they really
Democrats.
do that?
Yes.
That is so dumb.
And it's crazy because it's not in between every person. It's just the Democrats and Republicans.
They're like segregating each other. That's so weird.
Yeah, we're going to see it tomorrow.
I did not know that.
We're
That's
going
hilarious.
there. We'll see it in person because Bonnie and I and hopefully some other folks are going to go watch what happens with the NHexit constitutional amendment. And I'll share one of these flip outs with you by somebody who just loves the government coming up.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House intervention came after Moscow falsely accused the U.S. of maintaining biological weapons labs in Ukraine. At the Pentagon, spokesman John Kirby.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. There's nothing to it. It's classic Russian propaganda.
But now the White House says the Russians are spreading the false claims as a pretext to use chemical weapons themselves in Ukraine, pointing out that the Kremlin has a long and well-documented track record of deploying them.
Earlier, a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital in the embattled city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine as civilian casualties continue to mount. Ukrainian officials say 17 people were wounded in the blast. According to UN monitors, 516 civilians have been killed and 908 injured in the fighting since February 24th. The UN estimates that around 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country. President Biden has signed an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. The White House says the order is in response to the explosive growth in digital assets. FSN's technology correspondent Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
The executive order will coordinate efforts among financial regulators to better understand the risks and opportunities presented by digital assets. That includes consumer protection, national security, and illicit finance. The order directs policymakers to explore developing a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank, a sort of digital dollar that more than 100 other countries, including Russia and China, are exploring for their own currencies. The global market for digital assets is now valued at roughly $1.85 trillion. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
The S&P 500 notched its best day of trading in over a year on Wednesday as oil prices plunged. The war in Ukraine had sent energy prices soaring in recent days. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Brent crude posted its biggest daily drop since April 2020 on Wednesday, bringing the price down to closer to $110 per barrel. This comes a day after energy prices spiked following President Biden's decision to ban Russian oil. The dip in oil prices Wednesday fueled a major rally for the US markets. The Dow Jones closed up 2%, the S&P climbed 2.6%, its best day since June 2020, and the Nasdaq climbed 3.6%. William Denzelo, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, and you can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to freetalklive.com. We've got a lot of features there. One of them is our social media platform that we launched over a year ago. I think almost 2 now, or close to it. And there's a lot more leeway to say the things you want to say there. You won't have yourself censored unless you're there to spam. If you're there to spam, then you're gone. But if you are there to express yourself, then you're welcome over at social.freetalklive.com. That is our server. We're running the thing thanks to Mastodon, which is the open source self-hosted Twitter clone, basically. You can head over to social.freetalklive.com. All right, so with you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Nikki.
Here's a story from, this is the Conway Daily Sun. This is one of the northern New Hampshire newspapers in I don't know if it's a letter to the editor or it's kind of on the long side, so I'm guessing it's actually an editorial piece by a woman named Jonna Carter. She lives in Center Conway, and she writes this. New Hampshire State House is harboring a festering variant, one for which we desperately need a vaccine. I'm not talking about Omicron nor its subvariant BA2. Our state government has been infiltrated by an alien cancer known as the Free State Project.
That's so offensive to people who have gotten cancer to just be like, people who I don't like politically are cancer.
That's a great point, Bonnie.
That's like being I don't know, it's like being like a little troll online.
It's also dehumanizing to call someone an alien cancer, kind of like, dirty Jap or whatever. Like, all right, well, let's start genocide against the Free Staters now. They're not even humans.
Yeah, like when there was this girl that was going crazy, I don't even know if it's really her actual opinions, who's a native here, and she was saying that you guys are invading. I was just like, wow, say that, tell that to the Native Americans if your family's been here this whole time.
And these same people are generally advocating for things like open borders and allowing Mexicans to migrate here, which I think is great. I don't have an issue with that, but it's just very ironic that people will say that that's okay, but that I'm a cancerous alien from moving here from Massachusetts.
Right. You're the kind of alien they don't want, right? For 20 years, Free Staters have been moving to New Hampshire, quote, from away, unquote, with every intention of altering the cultural and political landscape to suit some warped idea of libertarianism.
And yet they don't want to leave the Union and be even more their own culture and own identity. They want to be in the Union. So,
Great point.
It doesn't make any sense.
To which they profess to subscribe. I've said it before. The Free Staters are the folks giving libertarians a bad name. Of the 50 states, I can think of none more than ours that so proudly leans libertarian. Libertarianism reflects New Hampshire's spirit and history, espousing as it does independence, equality, and personal freedoms. Don't conclude, however, that because the Free Staters have assumed the libertarian moniker, that this makes them so.
It's very convenient that she can just say the Free Staters and she won't list any names. If I was writing an article about somebody like I did about Brody DeShays, I'd list Brody DeShays, not just,
She's got one name coming up. But her point here is that we're not real libertarians. We're the bad people masquerading.
So what is a libertarian then? Does she ever define that term?
Well, we'll continue here. She says that don't conclude that because the Free Staters have assumed the Libertarian moniker, this makes them so. They've been able to infiltrate state government by cloaking themselves in live free or die, and this pretense has gone largely under the radar. Free Staters are about as anti-libertarian as you can get. They're absolutely not advocating personal freedoms. They're about power and control.
Oh.
Their agenda is one of far-right extremism. The era of Trump has been a boon for these clowns, as it's afforded their ilk a platform and thus, if not legitimacy, some standing. They run on the Republican ticket, but neither are they Republicans. In a word, they are fascists.
Oh my god.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. This has to be satire.
I don't know. It's a good question. While libertarians are against government overreach, the Free Staters are the very definition of government overreach. They've invaded our schools, our voting booths, and our medical consultations, from threatening teachers to eroding voting rights to stripping women of their right to privacy in the doctor's office. They're more akin to Gestapo than libertarians.
Is she okay?
What situation could she be referring to about
I have no
stripping
idea.
women of the right to privacy? Because I just can't imagine a libertarian campaign against something like
this
that.
This is a straight up attack by, unless it's satire as you suggested, it's a straight up attack against libertarians to try to position them as something besides what we are, which is people that are actually concerned with individual liberties and freedoms.
Everything she's saying, it's like the complete opposite of everything that Free Staters typically stand for.
And
it's kind of weird.
It's pretty funny because about a year ago, I thought about the fact that just in general, people who want to be against people like me who are liberty-minded, they will attack the word freedom because it has kind of a connotation with, like, you know, a shirtless, fat guy waving an American flag saying freedom, America, all that stuff. But they never attack the word liberty. And I looked up the differences of the definitions, and off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to give you the exact definition of each, but I realized it's because they just absolutely cannot defend being anti-liberty. There's just no being anti-liberty. So this woman, she is like, okay, I can't defend, or I can't attack libertarianism, so I'm going to lie and say that the Free Staters aren't libertarian and not even give any actual explanation of why I think that.
And this is just one example. I mentioned before, if you follow Free State NH on social media, I follow them on Twitter, they're constantly posting these
there's so many
insane people who are just going off about the Free Staters. And you need to ask yourself, if you live anywhere else besides New Hampshire and you're a libertarian activist, does this ever happen where you live? Does anyone ever write any letter to the editor or editorial piece for a local newspaper about libertarians?
You know what they say, all publicity is good publicity.
And the fact that they feel they have to do this,
it shows that it's working.
Is an acknowledgement that we have had a tremendous impact, not just the fact that we've been elected, but that they are scared of what we're accomplishing in New Hampshire, because the Free Staters are the vote tying whatever you want to call it. They can break any tie, right? Because if there's X number of Republican status and X number of Democrat status, and one side wants to pass a bill, well, they got to have the Free Staters, because if they're both going against one another, the Republicans and the Democrats, if the Free Staters want to kill the bill, then they vote to kill it, and it's dead. If they want the bill to pass, they vote to pass it, and it passes. That's what you can do with just 10% of the state house. But going on, she says the objective of the Free Staters is not merely to divest us of personal freedoms, but to divest us of our nation. They've relocated to New Hampshire to become a force in state government, their ultimate goal being secession from the United States.
Woo.
I recollect this being attempted once before. They love the callback to the Civil War, right? Statists always love to trot that one out as the reason why you can't do it now.
And do they ever trot out the fact that Abraham Lincoln bombed, people, and they weren't even soldiers during the Civil War, and was obviously the aggressor in that situation?
These people believe that Abraham Lincoln is a hero.
Yep, everybody does.
Trying until recently to downplay the secession idea, now they're ready to activate the plan. This past week, now this was written in early February, CACR 32 came before the State House House State Federal Relations and Veterans Affairs Committee, sponsored by Representative Mike Sylvia. The proposed amendment reads in part, quote, "The state peaceably declares independence from the United States and proceeds as a sovereign nation," unquote. Friday, the committee voted to recommend CACR 32 inexpedient to legislate. Hopefully, the legislature will vote to adopt the recommendation, but the writing is on the wall. This is merely the beginning. She's right about that. State Rep Israel Piedra found the committee discussion eye-opening and very troubling. Some Republican members, by the way, this man, Israel Piedra, did not attend the 3-hour-long testimony. So I doubt that he sat there and watched it at home, but he certainly was not in the room, because I remember there was actually a Free Stater sitting at his location on his desk, on the desks. So the number here is 603-283-6160. We'll continue with this breathless hit piece against the Free Staters trying to position us as anti-libertarian. Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 27th through July 3rd for the 6th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which sold out for the first time in 2021. Fork Fest takes place the week after Pork Fest, but Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 27th through July 3rd. There's no better place to celebrate Independence Day than around other freedom-loving activists in the Shire. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there. Forkfest.party.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
Fact. The new NSA data center in Utah requires 1.7 million gallons of water every single day to operate. Billions of Fourth Amendment violations need massive computers and the water to cool them. That water is being supplied by the state of Utah. Fact. There's absolutely nothing in the Constitution which requires your state to help the feds violate your rights. Our message to Utah: turn it off. No water equals no NSA data center. Visit offnow.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. You can bring up anything here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We're talking about independence and the New Hampshire exit movement that is causing people who are statists to flip out, and they tend to be more on the left than on the right, but there are definitely plenty of people on the right that do not want to see secession happen. So
but people on the left and the right are both liars who are anti-secession. They're never against it for any honest reason. Like, they're always lying.
That's a good point.
Like this lady.
We're going to get back into this story here, but also you're invited to join us online over at freetalklive.com, and we got a lot of features there, including feeds. RSS feeds that you can pop into your favorite podcast client and subscribe to Free Talk Live to get each episode as it's released. Go to feeds.freetalklive.com. You'll find multiple different feeds. There's one that's the full show and the digest. There's another feed that's just for the digest. There's another feed that's just for the full shows. So you'll find those over at feeds.freetalklive.com. Back to this story from the Conway Daily Sun. It's a newspaper that appears in northern New Hampshire in the town of Conway. The woman writing this is trying to claim that the Libertarian Free Staters are not in point of fact libertarians. They were actually fascists, which is the first time, I got to say, that I've ever heard that one. But she goes on to focus on the issue of independence, saying that we're now moving to our plan to secede from the United States, and that this CACR 32 is the first step. And of that, she is correct. CACR 32 is the first major political step that any state has taken towards an independence movement. We understand our chances are pretty poor. The odds are the establishments on both the left and the right are going to swing into to play against this thing. But the funny thing is, even though both the left and the right on this committee that we all sat in front of and a couple of us spoke in front of, this Federal Relations Committee voted 21-0, meaning every single Republican and Democrat on the committee. It's almost half and half. It's like, if the Republicans are in charge of the state house, they'll be 12 out of the 22, and the other 10 will be Democrats. So they all voted against this thing. But yet one of the Democrats, Representative Israel Piedra, still tries to make it sound like they're more against secession than the Republicans. He said, quote, "The committee discussion was eye-opening and very troubling. Some Republican members were more concerned with whether secession could be successfully implemented than with the concept itself," unquote. According to Piedra, Committee Chair Al Baldessaro, quote, "agreed with the concept of secession and lamented that a sufficient plan does not currently exist to carry it out." Yikes, says the author. Sylvia noted that...
this person just wants people to be anti-secession without thinking about it at all.
Of course.
You just need to be anti-secession and not think about why or how it would work.
Right, because it's the United States is the most important thing ever. We couldn't possibly leave it. Mike Sylvia, who's the founder, or not the founder, but the prime sponsor of this bill, CACR 32, the constitutional amendment, noted the hearing was packed with people supporting the amendment. Not a huge surprise. Free Staters band together to attend and influence any meeting in which their interests stand to be promoted. That's a huge compliment, right? The fact that we have the ability, we have the numbers, we have the organizational ability to come together and influence the legislature. That's what you're supposed to do, right?
I was going to say, like, Democrats don't do that, like Republicans don't do that. That's just what people who have, they have a vision for how they want the world to be, act, and it's legal in the United States, and in fact, it's the way that we've always done things.
That's what you're supposed to, quote unquote, do. But turns out when you actually show up to a meeting, then they lament the fact that you showed up.
And they always tell us, well, if you don't like the way things are, then you better get involved and change things.
Yeah, but when you show up, they want you to go home. Free Stater, she says, Sylvia said, quote, some may consider it a laughable question, unquote, regarding the amendment. It's preposterous, says the author here, but it's anything but laughable. Rather, it's insidious and dangerous, and it further imperils our republic as democracy is under siege, not only in New Hampshire, but throughout the country.
Oh, thank God.
Here's a window into Mike Sylvia's character. The Laconia Daily Sun quoted a discussion of his secession strategies. This is where we were having a meeting about early on about the wording of the amendment and stuff. He said, quote, this is not my feeling, but you know the atmosphere out there is that those dirty Mexicans or Guatemalans or whatever are coming across the border, bringing in COVID with them. It's a bit of nonsense, but that is a genuine mood that is out there, and whether or not it's true, if we could take advantage of it, why wouldn't we? Unquote. She says, for starters, how about decency?
This is actually, she is actually part of the type of people thinking that, whether she wants to accept it or not. If she is saying that people who are from America coming to New Hampshire to be part of the Free State movement is a cancer,
alien cancer,
what would she think? Yeah. That she's being no decent. Different than somebody who says that Mexicans or Guatemalans coming up here is a cancer. Yep. I don't see the difference at all.
The difference is Mike Sylvia doesn't actually believe that.
Yeah. And
Mike
she
Sylvia
does.
is just saying, hey, let's pander to these people if we need to get them to support secession.
Yeah.
And that's just, it's ugly, but that's politics. And politics isn't decent. It's disgusting. She goes on. She says, the idea of secession is taking hold. Hashtag national divorce was trending on Twitter in December. As a victim of divorce, I can assure everyone.
Oh my
a victim
gosh.
of divorce? Is she saying that her husband divorced her and she didn't want to leave? Or she didn't want him to leave?
That's a great question.
I've never heard the term victim of divorce in my life. If she means her parents got divorced when she was a kid, I could see how that would hurt, but at the same time, like, I don't think that makes you a victim.
Here's what she says. I can assure everyone that you don't want the United States of America as your respondent. So I think she's referring to the idea that the U.S. is abusive and they're going to hurt you.
And I also like how she used the term victim of divorce, but she referred to human beings as alien cancer in the beginning. Like, that's not offensive, but using the word divorce is.
Yeah.
She's just...
Have New Hampshire Republicans thought this through? In a good year, federal funding contributes to a third of the New Hampshire state budget.
After we give it to them.
Right.
And then they give it back.
They give a fraction
part
of it back.
It's like being grateful for your tax returns. Like, oh, thank you so much for these tax returns.
What would I do without you?
Yeah.
Add COVID to the mix, and this is upped significantly. Representative Tim Horrigan called the secession movement un-American, pointing out that it defies the oath of office. Every elected official upon their swearing in is required to take the oath, a catchy little ditty that goes, quote, I blank solemnly swear that I will bear faith and true allegiance to the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire and will support the Constitution thereof.
And
unquote.
then it could just be changed when we left.
In conclusion, if it looks like an insurrectionist, swims like an insurrectionist, and quacks like an insurrectionist, it's probably a free stater.
Oh my God. Well,
insurrection involves
violence.
Yep. By definition, so that's ridiculous.
CACR 32 does nothing but promote a simple, peaceful, nonviolent vote on this question. It is not a vote on secession. This is something that many of these state reps do not understand. Certainly many of the people who are looking at it do not understand. A state representative is not violating their oath of office by putting something on the ballot that the people requested. People said, we want to vote on independence. Some state reps said, okay, we'll put together a constitutional amendment and you guys, can work on promoting it. And if the state reps vote for it, if it has to be 60% of the state reps, it has to be 60% of the Senate, then it goes on the ballot and it has to get 2/3 at that point. So roughly 67% of voters would then have to vote for it in order for it to pass. That would be the people making a decision. The state reps simply would just put the question on the ballot. But what could possibly be considered illegal about that? But yet, many of these state reps are deathly afraid of the federal government, and this position of, oh, you can't do that, was what was trotted out at this hearing and what persuaded at least 2 of the reps who were on that committee to change their minds and vote against this bill.
Because they thought that they could be brought up on charges based on a part of the U.S. Constitution that isn't referring to anything like what voting on CACR 32 would be like. It was referring to if you have ever been at war against the United States or aided the enemies thereof, then you can't run for office. That's what the part was. That's what the part of the U.S. Constitution that was cited for that threat was, and they don't even know the Constitution. They just go, "Oh my God, that sounds scary."
They don't, and they don't know the fact that secession is not mentioned in the Constitution. There's nothing in there about that you can't secede, you cannot end the relationship, you cannot break up. It's not in there. And so therefore, Article 10 of the U.S. Constitution, which reserves all rights not enumerated within the Constitution to the states, therefore Article 10 applies.
To secession, yep.
Yeah, so the ability to say goodbye is something that every state government and the people therein retain.
Well, this person sounds like they don't believe in the right to leave a group that you once were a part of. I mean, she called herself a victim of divorce, and all I can think is that she was a wife and didn't want to get divorced, and her husband divorced her anyway.
More coming up here. You can share your thoughts at 603-283-6160. We'll get into some jail-related news. Nikki, you've got a bizarre, I guess not even that bizarre, it's probably happened a few times. Somebody got put in jail wrongfully, and we'll talk more about that situation coming up. Plus, relationships that are broken over politics. Bonnie's going to tell us maybe they can be fixed. Hour 3's on the way. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House intervention came after Moscow falsely accused the U.S. of maintaining biological weapons labs in Ukraine. At the Pentagon, spokesman John Kirby.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. There's nothing to it. It's classic Russian propaganda.
But now the White House says the Russians are spreading the false claims as a pretext to use chemical weapons themselves in Ukraine, pointing out that the Kremlin has a long and well-documented track record of deploying them.
Earlier, a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital in the embattled city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine as civilian casualties continue to mount. Ukrainian officials say 17 people were wounded in the blast. According to UN monitors, 516 civilians have been killed and 908 injured in the fighting since February 24th. The UN estimates that around 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country. President Biden has signed an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. The White House says the order is in response to the explosive growth in digital assets. FSN's technology correspondent Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
The executive order will coordinate efforts among financial regulators to better understand the risks and opportunities presented by digital assets. That includes consumer protection, national security, and illicit finance. The order directs policymakers to explore developing a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank, a sort of digital dollar that more than 100 other countries, including Russia and China, are exploring for their own currencies. The global market for digital assets is now valued at roughly $1.85 trillion. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
The S&P 500 notched its best day of trading in over a year on Wednesday as oil prices plunged. The war in Ukraine had sent energy prices soaring in recent days. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Brent crude posted its biggest daily drop since April 2020 on Wednesday, bringing the price down to closer to $110 per barrel. This comes a day after energy prices spiked following President Biden's decision to ban Russian oil. The dip in oil prices Wednesday fueled a major rally for the US markets. The Dow Jones closed up 2%, the S&P climbed 2.6%, its best day since June 2020, and the Nasdaq climbed 3.6%. William Denzelo, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. The government of Poland said on Tuesday that it's ready to send a stockpile of old Russian MiG fighter jets to Ukraine on the basis that the United States would then replace them. The State Department said they were surprised by Poland's offer, but the Biden administration is worried now that the shipment of MiGs to Ukraine might be seen by President Vladimir Putin as a sign that NATO is entering the conflict with Russia. Former British Foreign Secretary Jeremy Hunt thinks it's a tough decision to weigh up.
I don't see why we can't do that, but it's a matter for the Poles. There are implications for them if they do that, and ultimately they must decide that. But in all these things, what we're trying to do is to calculate how a very dangerous and slightly unhinged adversary might react. And so I think we have to be cautious and pragmatic. But I think the truth is that this has been both a disastrous period in diplomacy for the West, because we didn't stop this invasion happening, but actually in the last 2 weeks, a very impressive rebound, because I think that people have seen, the world has seen the West unite. And so I think that gives us courage that actually we can end up with the right result.
That, of course, assumes Russia does not topple the government of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, which remains very much Moscow's ambition. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
The main news again. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. President Biden signs an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. And the S&P 500 notches its best day of trading in over a year as oil prices plunge. That is the latest feature story news. Ira Spitzer reporting.
We've got Today Now's medical expert, Dr. Kareem Mazari, here to give us some tips on how to convince a stubborn little guy to take off his Spider-Man costume and start wearing normal clothes so people don't think he's a weirdo. And also joining us is my son Spencer, still dressed as Spider-Man. Spencer.
Hi, Mom. I find the best thing to do is to try and have a dialogue with your child. Now, Spencer, why won't you take your costume off?
Because then people will know my true identity.
You're not even wearing the mask! People already know who you are!
Well, bargaining can work. Explain to your child.
Is it not enough that I say take off the Spider-Man costume? Now I've got to bargain with my own child? Jesus Christ!
You know,
Spencer, sit down. Sit down. Do you want to be put in the silence trunk again? You don't like the silence trunk, do you?
Okay.
I'm Spider-Man! I'm Spider-Man!
Spencer, sit down right now. Sit down, you little face, or I will break the rest of your toys on purpose. Do you understand me?
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. We're launching into the third hour of the program. Phones are open. If you want to join the show, you can. Hear the number 603-283-6160. We've got some jail-related stories on the way for you. Plus, can you fix relationships that were broken over politics? Maybe during COVID or Trump or whatever we're talking about. We've got both of those stories on the way here. But again, phones are always open. You can call in about anything. Tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Nikki.
We go to your calls and thoughts. First up, he is Representative Matt Santonastasso. He's one of the co-sponsors of the legislation that we were just kind of talking about, CACR 32, the historic New Hampshire Independence constitutional amendment. This isn't your typical bill. It's a proposed constitutional amendment. As I was saying in the last hour, it does have to get 60% to pass the state house, 60% to pass the state senate. And then if it does do those things, which is a huge bar to overcome, because most of the people that are in these offices are statists, right? So the odds that this is going to pass, pretty slim. But at the very least, it is historic because this, to my knowledge, has never happened since the Civil War. And it's amazing. So anyway, Matt, I didn't ask you to call in. I guess you were just listening. So what's on your mind?
Oh, yeah, I was just calling in. You know, tomorrow's a big day, and you guys were talking about it. But you're talking about the 9th and 10th Amendment of the Constitution, and a lot of people bring that up, that, you know, powers not, you know, enumerated in the Constitution are reserved to the states. But one thing that I haven't really heard anyone talk about is Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution actually lists all the powers the states have. I'm sorry, all the things the states are prohibited from doing.
Okay.
So it says things like they can't issue currency unless it's in gold and silver, and things like this. What it doesn't list anything about, you know, a state leaving the Union or independence or anything along those lines. So if it was prohibited by the Constitution, you know, for a state to leave, certainly they would put it in there.
Wow, that's such a good point. Yeah,
solid.
I haven't heard anybody mention that.
But what about the oath? What about the people who say you swore an oath of allegiance to the United States, so therefore you can't even vote for a constitutional amendment that would allow the people to vote? So
a couple of things. One, if someone has a problem with the government and they want to run for office, you're obligated to give the oath. You know, so no one could just like say, well, maybe you could not take the oath. But since it's a constitutional amendment, you're amending the thing that you gave an oath to. So it's impossible for it to be, against the Constitution if it's an amendment to the Constitution. And
that's a good point.
Then with my interpretation of the U.S. Constitution, with Amendments 9 and 10, and then, Article 1, Section 10, it sounds like this is totally legitimate.
Sounds good to me, but there's obviously a lot of pushback on this thing. What have you been hearing? Obviously, your ear is closer to the ground there in the State House. I mean, are you hearing any rumors? Is this thing going to get? Are they going to try to table this thing? Is there going to be some dirty pool being played, or is this going to come to a vote tomorrow?
Well, it could get tabled. Any rep could just make a motion to table it, and then we would be voting on tabling. I don't know if that's going to happen or not. And I don't know if a tabling motion would even pass. The Democrats might actually vote not to table it because, they might perceive this as politically popular for them. But I don't know. I hope it doesn't get tabled only because we could vote on it, but tabling would silence any discussion on it, on both sides. So there's some, Republicans say they want this thing tabled because they don't want any discussion.
The Republicans also probably are nervous about voting on this because it is going to be what's called a roll call vote. If it does go to a vote, then every single person is recorded, unlike like a voice vote where they would just go, yeah, aye or nay or whatever, and then you don't really know who voted which way. So all the votes would be recorded, and if a Republican is sort of understanding that maybe there would be some people in their districts that would support this, but they themselves are too afraid to because they don't want to just put themselves on the record, then a vote to table is basically like, opting out of this entire discussion and, okay, well, let's not have it at all. And that's different than saying no to a thing politically.
Yeah, that's I guess that's right. The thing about the roll call, though, is it's not guaranteed we're going to have a roll call. We could get a roll call.
I thought that it was guaranteed because it's a constitutional amendment.
You know what? Yep, I think you're correct.
Yeah, that's what I heard, at least. So what you're saying is a normal bill would not necessarily, by default, have a roll call, and then a certain number of reps have to request it, right? That's the way a normal bill goes?
Right. But the tabling motion may or may not be roll called, and if it's tabled and there's no roll call on the table, then we wouldn't know anything.
But now, don't you need like 10 reps for the roll call vote in order to force it?
I believe it's 20.
20. Oof. All right. Well, I don't know if we, whether we have 20 reps willing to stand for it. I mean, if they try to table it, I think that somebody should call for a roll call on that. Just at the very least, that way we know who voted to table this thing and who didn't. Because whoever's voting to table it is definitely one of the cowards who likely would vote against it if their feet were to the fire.
Now, there's a good chance that Democrats may want to roll call it too. So there's 200 people over there, give or take.
Yeah. By the way, this is going to be the first time back that the state reps have been back since COVID. As a new state rep, Matt, you've actually never been in the State House full chamber for a full House session, right? This is going to be your first time in there since you started in late 2020.
Yeah, that's correct. And if we don't table it and we have discussion on it, my first time speaking in Reps Hall will be on this bill.
That's awesome.
I hope you get the chance. I know you've got a speech prepared for this. Isn't it true that the Democrats refused to even go to the State House if there wasn't some sort of plexiglass barrier put up?
I don't know the details on that. There is plexiglass at Reps Hall that I saw. It's pretty hilarious. It's about 4 feet tall, and Reps Hall's, I don't know how many feet tall it is in there. It's
huge.
Massive.
Yeah.
So to think that this piece of plexiglass is going to do anything. I'd really like it if they would just get rid of the plexiglass at all the stores. I mean, I can't even talk. It's like I'm trying to buy something, and between the mask and the plexiglass, and I got to aim the barcode at them so they can beep it because they can't get the items. They got to reach to that tiny door. I mean, this plexiglass thing is just really ridiculous.
Are they
really
still
obnoxious.
in a lot of stores? I feel like I haven't been. Maybe I'm just so used to it. I just feel like I haven't been noticing it as much.
It was somewhere I was recently, and I didn't notice it until I can't remember.
They
who
still
this
have it
was.
at Aldi. I know they still have it there.
Oh yeah, they do still have it at Aldi's. But I was somewhere and I was just just realized that they were wearing a mask and I wasn't, and then it made me realize there was a plexiglass in between us because I thought about it. I wasn't thinking about it until then.
It's kind of been normalized now. It's just always there, and it's
sucks.
it's easy enough to not notice it.
So, Matt, I guess another question I have for you for tomorrow is this thing could happen at any time, right? Is there a particular schedule, and can they just, break that schedule if there is one? Do you have any ideas to how that works?
Yep. So there's the consent calendar and then the regular calendar, and all the bills are listed that we're going to be voting on tomorrow are listed in the regular calendar. And they're listed in alphabetical order by committee. So because State and Veterans Affairs gave the recommendation on this one, it's pretty close. I think it's the second to last one, or it's pretty close to the bottom. So we'll probably hear it at the end of we'll probably vote on it at the end of the day. Someone could make a motion to special order it. Just talking to people, I don't think it's going to get special ordered. I don't think anything like that's going to happen, but that's possible. So they could move it earlier today. I don't know why they would do that.
I would think the only reason they would do it is if they perceived that there was some sort of growing support that would be showing up there. I have no idea how many people are going to be there at 7:30 in the morning, which is when Dave Ridley had called for a rally to happen outside. I know Bonnie and I are going to be handing out flyers to the state reps as they enter the chamber. So we've got a lot of work to do there, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the morning. Anything else you want to share tonight?
I'll just say one thing, because we talk about this a lot on the show, and it's something I've been thinking about. If you're a liberty-minded individual, not moving into Hampshire, you might as well just not do anything, because it's like working without tools. It's like having a wrench. You get all that leverage. You can't take bolts off a car without a wrench. I mean, what are you doing? You're kicking it.
That's a great point. Having people is that leverage, and we've got so many great people here, and so many more are coming. We met a lot of them at Liberty Forum over the weekend. We'll see you tomorrow, Matt. More coming up.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover brings her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. I want to say thank you to Carlos, who is a Free Talk Live supporter on our AMPS program. Carlos is platinum level, which means that he is giving at least $25 a month to Free Talk Live. We only ask for $5, so thank you, Carlos, for going way above and beyond the call of duty there. Would definitely appreciate your support. And by the way, AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. It's a way for you to help us get Free Talk Live onto more radio stations. We've got over 190 great stations that air the show at various times throughout the week. We can have more. It just takes time, takes money, it takes some marketing. And your support can help us with that. Plus, you get some cool perks for joining AMPS. Go to amps.freetalklive.com. It'll take you right to our Patreon, where you can learn more and sign up with your PayPal, your credit card, or debit card. That's amps.freetalklive.com. Let's go to the phones, to the fun. Colton is on the line in Texas, watching us on our Odyssey feed. Go ahead, Colton.
How y'all doing tonight?
Hey, what's on your mind?
So I thought I'd touch base a little bit on secession, because I think y'all are actually approaching it from the wrong way.
Really?
Secession is not about legality. It's just fundamentally at odds with legality. So even if you were to say the Constitution does not specifically prohibit secession, right? The whole point of secession is that you're extricating yourself from that Constitution. When the U.S. seceded from Great Britain, like, we were very much legally bound to the crown, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. The Crown said you can't do that, and, well, the Americans did.
And we said, yeah, we have our own legal system that says you can't now. So that is the point of secession, is that you are extricating yourself from one legal session or system.
Yeah, you make a good point. But the reality is, once you start talking about secession, people love to bring up the Constitution, and even under the Constitution, it still is allowable.
Well, and to me, it wouldn't make sense if the Constitution said that we weren't allowed to secede from the Union, considering that's how America came about, right?
That's what he's saying.
So so we already did that. So why would our Constitution not let us do it again?
Yeah, I agree with you, Colton. The only reason that we always talk about that on this show is because when we had a hearing about it to begin with the committee, there was this guy named Brody Deshays, and he was named the person to do the research on this bill. And he came and said, oh, yeah, so it's actually illegal. I talked to constitutional scholars, and they told me that it's actually illegal to do this, and scared at least two people who told us they would vote for it didn't vote for it because of this guy saying that, oh, you'll get brought up on federal charges if you vote yes on this. It's illegal. Yeah, that's why we're always talking about it on the show, but I completely agree with you. I think that even if if your husband tells you, nope, you can't leave me, you can say, yeah, well, I'm completely leaving all of your rules, and my marriage to you is null and void, and whatever we agreed to before is null and void because I'm leaving you. It's just like that with the federal government.
That's true. If people have the stomach to do that, then there's nothing that the feds can do about it. And ultimately, that's what matters most, is whether or not people have the will to secede. And at this point, I don't think that they do. But unfortunately, if this bill doesn't pass, we're not going to get to find out at the ballot box.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. Like, I honestly think Texas has the best chance of seceding right now.
You said Texas has the best chance?
100%.
Okay.
I've been part of the Texas nationalist movement since I was 16.
Nice. Yeah, I actually met Daniel Miller this weekend. He was at the Liberty Forum. He was one of the speakers at an independence panel. That there is going to be video released of that panel. I'm sitting on it for now just because we're so busy with making this thing happen. But there's no doubt Texas has a lot of momentum. There's a lot of people that support independence there. Unfortunately, the political process in Texas is way more difficult. There was a proposal about a year ago, I believe. Kyle Biederman, I think was his name, the state rep there, who proposed the Texas secession, which actually was just essentially, it wasn't even a secession bill. It was just a bill to start talking about seceding, essentially, and that didn't even make it into a committee.
Yeah, I mean, they've had a couple of gag votes. I think they had one back in the 50s, one in the 70s, where like, hey, does Texas want to secede at this point? So when Texas joined the U.S., they were the only state, they're their own country first, who actually built in to their joining the right to leave at a later date if they didn't like it.
New Hampshire basically has that too. I mean, it's not as explicit as I understand the Texas language, but we have the right to revolution built into our Constitution.
I didn't know that. But
yeah, check it out. It's Article 10 of the New Hampshire Constitution's Bill of Rights. and it's pretty rock solid. But that said, Texas definitely, also New Hampshire was its own nation as well. So we had a president in New Hampshire who ultimately became the governor after New Hampshire joined the Union. So we got that too. But you guys have the numbers. There's no doubt about it. I remember in 2012 when Obama was reelected, there was that whitehouse.gov petition for Texas to leave, or the question was, what would the White House do? And that thing got over 100,000 signatures like in less than a week or something like that. It was super fast. There's a ton of support in Texas. There's no doubt about it. Unfortunately, like I said, the political system there is just a lot harder to access. So hopefully we're going to get some more secessionist activists up here in New Hampshire, and we'll get some more pro-secession people elected. And I hope that you Texas folks and the New Hampshire folks have ourselves a friendly little competition to see who can go first, because whoever it is that goes first is going to encourage the other states to follow suit, whoever that happens to be.
And
the scary thing, like, let's say like a 50% chance California beats us both. Actually, that'd be a great thing. But
it would be great. Their movement has kind of had a bit of a bump in the road with a falling out between some of the organizers a couple of months ago, but they're trying to get things back together, from what I understand. So yeah, I support all secession movements. What were you saying there, Bonnie?
I was going to say Colton might go to PorcFest this year, and I was actually trying to talk to his girlfriend about it today to try to get her on board. And maybe he'll change his mind and put his secessionist energy towards New Hampshire when he comes.
That'd be fun.
We'll see. Colton, anything else you want to share with us tonight?
I just want to say I'm so proud of Bonnie. She has come so far since I've known her.
Oh, that's cool.
Well, we met when I was 15, so I would expect myself to be a little different.
Right on. Colton, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate the kind words, and thanks. I look forward to New Hampshire defeating Texas in the race to say goodbye, because somebody has to be first.
Yeah.
And if it's Texas, then that's fine. I mean, certainly they are bigger. There are way more people supporting. They've got a lot more of a history of promoting this. Like he said, he's been doing this since he was 16. And I guess he's known you for 10 years, so I'm going to guess he's 26 or something like that.
No, he's older than me.
A little older. So anyway, the guy that we met this weekend, Daniel Miller, who is one of the, I guess, most prominent people in the Texas nationalist movement, he's been doing it since 1996. So going on 30 years of activism in that particular area. So there's definitely a much longer running movement there that has had time to really simmer and grow and get people involved.
And that guy was great. He was on board with all the things that we would be on board with as far as secession, and man, he was just such a cool guy to meet.
He was really well spoken too. Like, he took every question that the audience had for him, and he had a great answer lined up. We'll look forward to releasing that video probably within the next few weeks. We got more coming up here. Some crazy jail news on the way. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. The White House says the world should be alert to the possibility that the Russians may soon use chemical or biological weapons in Ukraine. FSN's U.S. correspondent Simon Marks reports.
The White House intervention came after Moscow falsely accused the U.S. of maintaining biological weapons labs in Ukraine. At the Pentagon, spokesman John Kirby.
The Russian accusations are absurd. They're laughable. There's nothing to it.
It's classic Russian propaganda.
But now the White House says the Russians are spreading the false claims as a pretext to use chemical weapons themselves in Ukraine, pointing out that the Kremlin has a long and well-documented track record of deploying them.
Earlier, a Russian airstrike hit a maternity hospital in the embattled city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine as civilian casualties continue to mount. Ukrainian officials say 17 people were wounded in the blast. According to UN monitors, 516 civilians have been killed and 908 injured in the fighting since February 24th. The UN estimates that around 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled the country. President Biden has signed an executive order directing the U.S. government to come up with a strategy to regulate cryptocurrencies. The White House says the order is in response to the explosive growth in digital assets. FSN's technology correspondent Rachel Silverman has this report from San Francisco.
The executive order will coordinate efforts among financial regulators to better understand the risks and opportunities presented by digital assets. That includes consumer protection, national security, and illicit finance. The order directs policymakers to explore developing a digital currency operated by the U.S. Central Bank, a sort of digital dollar that more than 100 other countries, including Russia and China, are exploring for their own currencies. The global market for digital assets is now valued at roughly $1.85 trillion. Rachel Silverman, San Francisco.
The S&P 500 notched its best day of trading in over a year on Wednesday as oil prices plunged. The war in Ukraine had sent energy prices soaring in recent days. FSN's William Denzelo reports from New York.
Brent crude posted its biggest daily drop since April 2020 on Wednesday, bringing the price down to closer to $110 per barrel. This comes a day after energy prices spiked following President Biden's decision to ban Russian oil. The dip in oil prices Wednesday fueled a major rally for the US markets. The Dow Jones closed up 2%, the S&P climbed 2.6%, its best day since June 2020, and the Nasdaq climbed 3.6%. William Denzelo, New York.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Here tonight, you got Ian.
And Bonnie. And Nikki.
We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. Then coming up, Nikki's got a story about a woman jailed wrongfully. We'll get into the circumstances there. We've been talking about independence as we are on the eve of the very first potential hearing of the CACR 32, as it is called here in New Hampshire, the first bill in New Hampshire's history, from what I understand, to allow the people to vote on the question of whether or not to peaceably leave the United States. That's if it passes the State House and the State Senate first, then it'll go on the ballot, and it has to pass with 60%. So it's a pretty high bar to reach. But tomorrow's going to be the first time it gets heard in front of the full State House. We'll continue with your calls and thoughts, though. We've got Ammon calling from New Jersey. You're on Free Talk Live. Go ahead.
Hey, what's up? Well, congratulations on the whole vote thing. I've been telling people all it's going to take is one single state to secede, and the whole thing collapses like a house of cards.
I think you're right about that.
Hope so.
Because everybody is just going to flee to that one state that left.
Yeah, I wish the freedom-loving people who want to see secession would come here soon, rather than hope that we do all the hard work and then they can just come here and be more free. I understand those people are going to do that, but if you actually want to see secession happen in your lifetime, it would actually help if you are a liberty-minded person. I don't want anybody that doesn't care about liberty to come here, because you don't have to care about liberty to support secession, as has been proven by the California secessionists. But if if you care about liberty and you want to see secession, you want to have a chance at freedom, you should get to New Hampshire and help us make this possible. Help us get more state reps elected who aren't going to come up with lame-ass excuses as to why they won't support this. There was one Free Stater who sent me an email today, because I emailed all the state reps yesterday about the independence bill, and one of them, who I believe to be a Free Stater, wrote me back with this pretty weak-ass excuse as to why he wouldn't support this, basically because no one from his district had called him to
just people
support it.
Who weren't from his district that he said were, quote, involved in this. It's just like, oh, okay, my voice doesn't matter to you.
Right, and so even though all this would do would be to simply allow the people to vote on this, he still said he wasn't going to support it. So,
lame.
Pretty lame.
Well, just wait until they just call you guys all racist Confederates.
Oh yeah, they're calling us racist insurrectionists.
Yeah, that already happened months ago. But what were you calling about tonight, Emin?
Yeah, so I am. So I could actually be of assistance. So I have this this whole plan that I've been working on for years, where I'm an artist and I'm writing a book right now, and it's going to sound crazy, but I know their one weakness that we can exploit to take over the world. And I'm working on this art project, but I'm looking for other people that think the same way we do to help me, because the idea is I want to start a show, and then I already have the whole thing written. So and
what kind of show? You said you want to start a show, like a fictional show?
It's a science fantasy, it's science fiction fantasy, like cartoon.
Okay.
But it's definitely for adults.
Mm-hmm.
It's very violent. But my plan is that so in a perfect world, it'll be extremely popular. And then when it has its peak viewership, we're going to cut the feed and then make all the viewers have to watch a bunch of videos of our politicians being caught red-handed doing all this evil stuff, like the video of Anthony Fauci basically admitting that he created the coronavirus in 2019 on C-SPAN.
But couldn't they just turn it off?
I was
if
going to
they
say,
were
I
interested?
think that I would just be like, what's going on, and turn it off if my favorite TV show is doing that.
Right. Yeah, I don't know how well that's going to work. And if you're talking about the show would be on some sort of a broadcast network, you wouldn't be able to just cut the feed. That's not going to work. It just things don't work that way. It would be online.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is the one weakness that they have that you said you know about?
Yeah, well, the one weakness is that they control you with the television, and they control the culture and all of that, so you can use it against them. So
it just seems strange that you would spend so much time developing a creative television series, or for YouTube or Odyssey or wherever, whatever video platform we're talking about, some sort of video series, only to just break into the middle of it with random footage of boring politicians. It seems like a lot of effort to go through. Why not just put messages of freedom into the plots of the show?
That's what I was thinking too.
Well, there is that as well.
Okay.
See, I think that'd be a great idea.
I mean, I'm not going to talk about it because I would talk about it for like 6 hours if I tell you what it is. But it's just, if anybody knows anybody who's an artist or would be interested in working on a project. I mean, I'm trying to start my own business around it and all that. I've been writing this story since I was 14.
Oh, wow.
And I started putting it into actual book format this year, and I have for the first 40 pages written, and I've showed it to a bunch of different people, and they were all like, oh my God. They said it was the greatest thing they ever read. But I mean, everybody says that about every book.
So you said you yourself are an artist, so you're looking for more artists, or you're just the writer?
I'm both.
Okay.
I actually I still am pretty crazy actually, but back in 2013. See, I was a big fan. I was like super into the Alex Jones and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a film contest, and I actually made I made a cartoon movie for it.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the contest was bogus, and I doubt they even looked at it. But I made like a 20-minute long cartoon.
I remember Jones had a
200
movie contest, and he picked a winner. Maybe I'm thinking of a different one or something like that, but I do remember there being something like that, and they did choose a winner. I presume the winner got the potential prize or whatever it was supposed to be. Do
a
you
lot
guys
of
have
those
any
sweepstakes are fake, I think.
Do you guys have any suggestions for Ammon as far as how he could reach other libertarian art types?
I'm not sure. Maybe like Telegram groups or something like that.
Yeah, Telegram groups. I don't know if you need them to be specifically in New
Yeah, I think
Hampshire,
you would need a
but
specific idea, right?
maybe
like you can't
sell. What is that guy
Freedom
from
Cells?
Texas? Freedom Cells.
Freedom Cells might be a good place to start. But that's an excellent question. Freedom Cells, I believe it's .org. It's been a little while since I've checked their site. They have groups, but the Freedom Cells groups, there is a national one, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a good place to jump into. It's just basically a Telegram chat room. There are local Freedom Cells as well that they have, but I would try in the national room. Introduce yourself, talk about the ideas you have, maybe put forward some of your previous work so they can link to it and see that you're the real deal. And that's I think that might be a good place to get started.
Yeah, and the advice about the bus thing actually was really good that you gave me last week as well. I'm actually going to go to my mechanic tomorrow. He offered to just hang out with me and show me buses.
Nice. Yeah, it is freedomcells.org. I believe that is the correct site. So good luck, and Ammon, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate hearing from you. Yeah. The number is 603-283-6160. You can bring up whatever's on your mind. That's 603-283-6160. And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Just head over to freetalklive.com where we have our chat server. You can go to chat.freetalklive.com, and that'll give you the step-by-step instructions as to how to get onto our Matrix server, which is a server that we run. We're the ones running that server. And that means we set all the policies. And policies are you can do what you want, basically. Head over to chat.freetalklive.com. And yeah, the Freedom Cells website, freedomcells.org. And I'm not sure. I think you have to create an account to get into where the Freedom Cells are and how to join. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
If you're looking for work, it's a process of elimination, and you're trying not to be eliminated. So here's a tip for making the cut, and this might seem subtle, but to the person interviewing you, it's not. There is a world of difference between applicants who convey, "I need a job," and those who simply ooze, "I want to work," especially in these lean times when many you're competing with will seem desperate in "I'll take anything" mode. If you convey specific interest in this job at this company, you will be conspicuous. Thus, the value of going to school on the company you're applying to before the interview. With money and attention so tight now, effective communication skills have never been more important. For more tips for job seekers and everyone else, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
Tricia, you deserve the forgiveness. Absolutely. I know that it feels like you've made some mistakes, and you know what? You have made mistakes. Now, it doesn't feel like this.
Who hasn't?
Right. A, it doesn't make any sense for you to continue to beat yourself up. You're not going to get anything out of it. Nobody else is going to get anything out of it.
That's
but
true.
B, you would give the forgiveness to somebody else. You deserve that forgiveness for yourself.
And only you can give it to yourself.
I mean,
and I think forgiveness is about moving on for yourself, being able to come to a position in your own mind where you're ready to just accept what went wrong and try your best to do better in the future. And find self-assess and find areas that you can improve. And I think, bringing forgiveness to the table for yourself is one of the most important things that you can do.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones are open. You can join us here at 603-283-6160. Maybe enough time for you if you dial in now. With you tonight, it's Ian.
It's Bonnie.
And Nikki.
Don't forget you can join us online over at freetalklive.com and enjoy the features we have waiting for you there. Once again, that's freetalklive.com. Coming up, Nikki, you've got this story about this woman jailed wrongfully. I want to get into that. Also, we're going to go to the phones and your calls and thoughts. We've got Dave on the line in Michigan, calling from Jackson, listening to WKHM. Go ahead, Dave.
Thank you for taking my call. I'm in Michigan here, and you guys are doing a good job there in New Hampshire.
Thank you.
Wanting to succeed from the country. We would like to succeed over here from Gretchen Whitmer. We call her Big Gretch because she's huge, and she was the one that was in the bar violating her mask mandates, acting like a queen. And there's an attorney general named Dana Nessel, her right-hand lieutenant there. And she went to a Michigan State game and got drunk and was acting like a fool. And we just want to know what we can do with these women once we succeed from the country, because I don't think anybody would want these women. We in Michigan call them the Skank Sisters. They are skanky, and we call her Fat Ass Gretchen, and we call her Drunk Ass Dana, because that is the truth. And that's the best I can do for the people of the state of Michigan. You go, and we will follow you. God bless you and stay safe.
All right. Thanks for the,
Wow.
thanks for the call.
Inspirational.
I looked her up, and she didn't look that fat to me. So I looked up how tall she is, and she's 5'8", which I mean is on the taller side for a woman, but she doesn't look that fat.
I guess a lot of people are upset with those politicians there in Michigan.
I think there's a lot more to be upset with them about than how fat they are.
Look, yeah. The term, of course, is secede, just to clarify. A lot of people misstate it as succeed. You can succeed at seceding, but secession is a different word than succeed. Anyway, let's get into your story,
Sure.
Nikki. You've got something about a woman going to jail wrongfully, which hasn't...
Yes.
It's happened before, now it's happened again.
Woman was jailed for 13 days before police realized they had the wrong person.
Oops.
A California woman is suing Los Angeles and its police department because she said she was wrongfully arrested and jailed for nearly 2 weeks after being mistaken for another woman in Texas who shares her name.
Wow.
Wow, another woman who doesn't even live in the same state.
Yeah. Bethany Farber's ordeal began in April when she was waiting to board a flight to Mexico at Los Angeles International Airport.
Oh, no.
And the TSA was told that she was wanted by authorities because they just saw her name and thought that she was the person with a warrant out for their arrest.
Wow.
According to a federal lawsuit filed Tuesday, TSA agents told Barber that there was a warrant out for her arrest in Texas, handcuffed her, and detained her before the Los Angeles airport police arrested her. In the lawsuit, Farber says she repeatedly told authorities that she had never been to Texas and that she had been accused of a crime, but that she was jailed for 13 days without bail before police admitted that they had taken the wrong woman.
Wow. Are they going to pay her?
I doubt that.
I guess that's the point of the lawsuit,
we'll see
right?
after the lawsuit. So, according to the lawsuit filed in the U.S. District Court for Central District of California, Farber's arrest and imprisonment violated her Fourth Amendment rights, because she was detained without probable cause. Authorities did not do the bare minimum to confirm her identity, the lawsuit says.
Yeah, normally you would look at the person's birthday.
Yeah, I mean, she couldn't have all of that in common with this other person.
I know,
Unlikely.
I doubt that they had the same birthday. I mean, that would be a huge coincidence.
Right.
Or maybe if they had a photo of her, or I don't know if they use like I'm assuming they both have social security numbers. I don't know if they'd use something like that, but it just seems like there are so many things that could be done. And did they have the same middle name too? I don't know. It's
Highly
just
unlikely.
Yeah.
The odds that they have the same middle name are unlikely, and the odds they have the same birthday are very unlikely.
Yeah.
So they clearly did absolutely nothing.
And even
they,
if
they
this-
just glanced at this woman's name.
Even if this woman gets money for this, she won't get like her trip to Mexico. What if
Or
she
her
was
2
going for
weeks back.
business? Like if it was like a business meeting in
Right.
Mexico, she won't
She
get
lost the
that
deal.
back. She won't get her 2
and
weeks
it's a
of her
bad
life
look
back.
just to get arrested for some people, like depending on
Sure.
what profession you're in, even
You
if
could
it
lose
was
your job.
mistakenly, there's just so many consequences of this thing that happened to her
Yep.
that can't be repaid.
And you know who won't suffer consequences? The TSA agents
Oh, absolutely.
and the law enforcement
Yeah.
from Los Angeles. They will suffer
Yeah.
zero consequences for this. They will not have to pay a dime to her if
Yeah.
if she does end up getting money.
It'll be the
that'll come from the
taxpayers.
taxpayers,
Yep.
and they won't even have to spend a single day off of work.
Yeah, ridiculous. So it goes on to say they could have easily checked her fingerprints. They could have checked her driver's license, her social security number. There are
Anything.
numerous things that they could have done to prevent and avoid her ending up getting locked up in jail.
Yep, there's no excuse for this. It's just plain old bureaucratic incompetence.
Maybe they figured it out within a day or two, and they were just like,
Too
"Wow, we
embarrassed.
did this," or they were trying to find what else they could hold her on. Like they were like, "Okay, we can't hold her for this. We got to hold her for something else," or something. Because I
Could
just
be.
can't imagine that
It would have taken 13 days.
It would have taken 13 days to find that out. That wasn't the same woman.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. And this isn't the first time something like this has happened. I mean, it's crazy that it happened because they both had the same name, but people are wrongfully imprisoned all the time.
Bonnie, can we fix relationships that have been burned to the ground due to political differences? Is that even possible? And is it even worth trying?
This from the Foundation for Economic Education says, relationship counseling for politics. How to fix relationships that have been broken by political disagreement. Says if you've lost friends or family members over political disagreement in the last couple of years, you're not alone. According to a 2021 study by the American Enterprise Institute, a full 15% of adults have ended a friendship over politics. I feel like it should be higher than that. I know I have.
You personally ended it, or the other person did?
The other person did in 2016. We became friends again. I said, I don't even care about that stuff anymore, like who's president and all that stuff. We became friends again. And then just the stuff she posts now is just so horrible. I just had to like unfollow her and not talk to her anymore. It's just like pictures of like gravestones that said, I just didn't want to get the vaccine because I didn't wanted to know more time, things like that, like, oh, you're gonna die if you don't get vaccinated, things like that. Like, you can't be friends with somebody like that.
No,
so
that's
yeah,
not
I've ended
cool.
it and she ended it.
Yeah, see, that's how I kind of feel about this, is if somebody wants you dead, I don't know if that is someone you really want to be a friend with. I mean, there are a lot of other people you could be friends with that don't want you to die.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or not relishing the idea of, oh my God, you didn't put a mask on, so now you are evil incarnate and you must perish. I mean, look, political arguments between people ultimately do, whether people realize it or not, have one side or the other coming down to the issue of they're willing to use violence against you. They don't agree. It's not just we agree to disagree. It's not only do we disagree, but you, the statist, are willing to use violence against me, your supposed friend, for disagreeing with you. I, on the other hand, am not. I'm not willing to use violence against you because I'm a libertarian. I'm against the use of aggressive force. And I feel like this subject probably deserves a lot more discussion, so maybe we'll continue it tomorrow. But please, you can keep going with some more from this story.
Well, it goes on and it gives different tips. So tip number 1, talk about values. Good relationships are built on a bedrock of commonalities. It's hard to have a relationship with someone with whom you don't have anything in common. When you're discussing politics, talking about shared values rather than a specific policy position can help bring these commonalities to the fore and reestablish a joint connection with each other. The only problem with this is that most people today don't have actual principles, and they just
not a shred.
Say that they agree with one thing, and then that same principle could apply adversely to something else they believe.
Right. Look at all these warmongering leftists when it comes to the Ukraine situation. These people, the people on the left are supposed to be anti-war, at least they were under Bush, but now all of a sudden it's okay to, drop bombs on Russia or launch a nuke or shoot down Russian aircraft and, whatever. I mean, it's absolutely insane, and the fact is we don't share values with statists. We might like the same television shows, we might like the same football team, and for most people that's what their friendships are based on. That's what they start a conversation about. It's like, oh, well, what'd you watch last night?
Yeah, it's very low-level, shallow relationships.
Right. I'm not saying politics isn't shallow. I mean, certainly politics can be shallow, too.
But values and morals and ethics.
Because with politics, it's usually just as shallow as Bonnie's pointing out, as red team, blue team. I want to talk further about this, so let's do more of it tomorrow night. Matt will be joining us, as long as we're still awake, after what's going to be a marathon day, it sounds like, at the State House. I'm hoping we can get a nap in tomorrow because we're going to be up at like 5 in the morning. So we'll see you online. In the meantime, over at freetalklive.com. It's Free Talk Live. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may